President Trump's poll numbers are on the rise even after the Putin press conference that drew condemnation from just about everyone. So how has the president managed to weather attacks from the media, porn stars, even members of his own party? Looking at you, Cocaine Mitch. And why haven't Democrats been able to come up with a winning message that actually hurts the president more politically? The panel is here to weigh in. Campus Reform's editor-in-chief is in the House. Lawrence Jones is back, along with syndicated radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. And Dow Jones Newswire's chief editor, Glenn Hall, is here. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Glenn, I will start with you. You say the president is shrouded in resiliency and an economic halo. What does that mean?
Economic halo is really what I think a lot of this is about. The economy is going well. We've created a lot of jobs. We're seeing wages come on. And, plus the markets have retained some resiliency as well. So all of that could be what really matters when voters go to the polls. If that turns, it could turn against the president. If it stays as a hot economy going into the midterms, that could benefit.
And I saw that Gerald Jerry Seib. Yes, he wrote in the Wall Street Journal, this is fine, but if the economy does take a downturn, it could be very bad for the president, and that would be his one Achilles heel.
That's one of the biggest Achilles heels, definitely. Right now he's got a lot of support from his base, and that's not enough necessarily to translate into many of these midterm elections.
Leslie is nodding. So you have people who voted for him, and no matter what he does, they find a way to defend his flaws, his missteps, his bad statements, and his successes, all of it. But is that enough to make a difference and get him reelected?
No. I don't think so, because if we're going to look at the polls and believe the polls, which I think after 2016 many of us are like a bit skeptical, I know I am, about any of these polls. First of all, I predict these next two rounds of polls, the cycles, that he will go back down. Second, if we look at numbers that we're applauding, they would be abysmal for any other president, Democrat or Republican.
No, actually, not really. I mean,
at this point going into
but
midterms?
If you look at this point in their presidencies, he's right on par. I mean, he's within 2 or 3 points of George H.W., George W., Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama.
Correct, but I'm telling you, it's going to go down in the next 2 cycles. And we'll bring me back if I'm wrong, and I'll say I'm right.
That's fine, but scandal after scandal, story after story, Democrats have been saying the same thing. And, that I told you so, crying wolf, so far it hasn't been enough. What else will Democrats have to either A, wound the president, or B, get voters on their side with some sort of positive vision?
Well, I think when you look at the poll numbers, the poll numbers, the majority of people don't approve of the president. The majority of people don't want to see Roe v. Wade overturned. The majority of people don't like the way he is handling Russia, Putin. The majority of people say, hey, let Mueller do his job and the investigation play out.
But
that is not his base, and they are not the majority of the Republican Party.
Where it's most important, and that's the economy. That's where he has his highest poll numbers.
For every American, is the money. There's a couple problems here. First of all, the Democrats got to find a candidate. Yeah. They have no candidate. And this is someone that did not support the president.
And Eric Holder's now flirting with the 20.
Exactly. And that would be dumb. But hey, it's their party. Number two, they don't have a message. They're about anti-Trump, and that's really not telling the American people what they're for.
For as negative as the coverage has been for this onslaught, that the president, whether you like him or absolutely hate him, you cannot deny that the onslaught has been relentless. His poll numbers, because of that, should be so much
Exactly. And then number three, they overplay their hands every single time. There's easy wins. Like, for example, the President's Putin summit. The president did have some missteps there. But then the Democrats, instead of just saying that, they say treason.
Yeah.
And then the American people is like, okay, now you guys are being ridiculous. First, he was American first president, and now he's selling himself.
Yeah, he's
Putin
overseas, and John Brennan is saying that it's treasonous. And Rand Paul points out that what's the penalty for treason?
Death.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense. So they have 3 problems, and I don't see them regaining themselves anytime before the midterms. We'll see what happens, though. All
right. Well, I will see the panel in just a little bit. They're coming back. North American scum. Yay! The Mueller probe is currently on pace to wrap up by the end of Honey Boo Boo's second term. But President Trump's legal team is doing their part to speed things up. Lead attorney Rudy Giuliani reportedly submitted a counteroffer to a possible interview with the special counsel where the president would be willing to discuss collusion but not obstruction of justice. All of this comes a few days after the FBI revealed it seized 12 audio recordings in the raid on the president's former cleaner, attorney Michael Cohen, including one involving A payoff to a Playboy playmate, alliteration. The White House has not addressed the latest recordings, leading some to believe they're not concerned. But is it also possible they're not talking because they're in full panic mode? I doubt it, but let me ask my panic-proof party panel. Tonight, Lawrence Jones is back along with Leslie Marshall and Glenn Hall. Glenn, I will start with you. What are you hearing about a possible deal between Rudy Giuliani and Robert Mueller? Yes to collusion questions, no to obstruction of justice.
That's it. And then what Giuliani was saying is basically the president has the right to fire anybody in his administration. So we don't need to talk about that. We don't need to explain ourselves. We can just skip right over that.
And some of those questions like, how did you feel when Jeff Sessions offered to resign?
Well, and there's also more that the president was directly involved in that decision. So there may be also a little more risk in going down that path, because what we are hearing from people close to the legal team there is that, you know, the president has a tendency to sort of speak a little bit long-windedly. He could walk himself into trouble potentially by giving some of his off-the-cuff answers that he's known for. Whereas on the, you know, collusion question, there's a lot less there that he might be able to walk around, and you know, a lot less direct involvement around any of the lines of inquiry that we've been hearing about.
So the sky is falling. Michael Cohen recorded the president. This is obviously the undoing of his presidency. Go.
No, I don't.
What? Come on, Leslie.
No, I know you want me to think that. You know, I'm a realist. No, I don't think so. But I do think he has something to hide. And I don't think because if you don't, you just say, hey, look, I want the truth to come out. I want this to play out. I'll answer all your questions.
That's not true.
I have a great legal team to advise me.
No one's that dumb.
I think
no one's that dumb. And there's no sitting president who would ever offer
I think these tapes actually say more about Cohen than they do perhaps about the
totally
president.
agree.
I don't think he was hired to be a great lawyer. I think he was hired, and
No,
I say
he's
this
obviously
in my
one of these
opinion, to be
shady
very
people who is
sleazy.
attracted to the president.
Right, he's sleazy. He's
Professional.
recording this, and obviously he's doing whatever he can to cover
recording his own client.
Exactly, very sleazy. To cover his butt. I think one of the reasons maybe they're talking about collusion, they know what's on those tapes, or they think they know what's on those tapes, but I don't think it's going to bring down the presidency. I do think there might be enough to indict him. There's a 5-year statute of limitations. They could wait until his first term is done. I think this is different than John Edwards. When you look at the timing, it's tighter, and he is president of the United States. John Edwards was
We shouldn't conflate the tapes and the issues about, you know, paying somebody to be silent
I wanna bring
with
in
the idea of collusion and the firing of Comey. Those are two very distinct.
Let's let lovely Lawrence
Let me
Jones.
say this. I think this is very smart of Rudy, because Constitution, this is essentially what he's saying, that you don't get to question the president because this is his job, he can do this. I also think, though, with the whole sketchiness of Cohen, I think he's not a credible witness anymore. I think he just destroyed himself if he ever had to take the stand. He seems like a shady lawyer. And I think if Rudy ever got a piece of him on a stand, it would be a masterpiece for his counsel. But I do find it comical that Leslie says if there's nothing to hide, then he should just be able to. There's no client on the planet of the
Let
earth.
alone a sitting president.
A sitting president
right.
is going to do that.
Yeah, and even if someone feels they are innocent, they don't just go to the police and start blabbing.
Right. Because you may entrap yourself by saying anything, and that's what they really want.
On something really stupid and then get indicted on a procedural crime.
Well, like the kind of thing that the president said when he said after he, you know, had fired Comey that it took a lot of pressure off of him. That starts to sound like they might have something.
It may have taken some pressure, but it's his constitutional right to do that. And I just find it funny that someone that was in the Attorney General's office is now going to try to put pressure on the president and say you can't do that.
Well, speaking of the Attorney General, I'm so glad you brought that up.
So good.
Jeff Sessions, not exactly the poster child for civil liberties. Earlier today, the AG spoke to a group of high school students and blasted colleges across the country for suppressing free speech. Jefferson?
Rather than molding a generation of mature, well-informed adults, some schools are doing everything they can to create a generation of sanctimonious, sensitive, supercilious snowflakes. We're not going to have it.
And then he went on to tell them to get off his lawn. Sessions went on to say instead of fostering debate, colleges are coddling students with trigger warnings, crying rooms, and therapy sessions. And now Beauregard is on record. His record on the drug war, civil assets forfeitures, and other civil liberties violations, less than stellar. But does he deserve some credit here, Leslie?
No, he's the Attorney General of the United States. He's the lawyer for all of us, snowflakes included. And all I can say is all those little flakes, you know, I think, and I'm hoping that in November will create an avalanche. And perhaps he will see that it's not a weakness, quite frankly, because I live in California. I know you used to live there. And I know some people like to, you know, make fun of us and call us snowflakes. You know, I don't think being sensitive to other people being offended. And I don't think saying, hey, we need to step back and say, as a society, do we want to have some of the rhetoric, some of these violent actions?
No, you mean burning down
racism,
campuses like UC Berkeley.
That is
Yeah, or
FIFA does not speak for the Democratic Party.
No, but go to Evergreen. Go to places like that where they feel like violence is justified if they don't like your words. And that's where this is leading. And that's
But it's
why
wrong on both
people
sides.
on the right talk about
there's not
defending
conservative
Richard
silence.
Spencer and Milo are not
he's not on the right.
flames
He's not. That's free speech. Even though I hate the guy, can't stand the guy, it's free speech and it's protected by the Constitution. What you guys are doing, if you don't like someone, then you guys scream them down. Then you have violence on campus, Antifa included. But there's also people that are considered moderates that are just a part of the local Democratic Party. I cover every day.
First of all, I don't agree with you. What you
members
guys
of the Young Democrats of America, they will go and shout down speakers. They will attack them. They will spit on my students, my reporters on the campus, just because they don't like what they have to say.
You have freedom of speech, but you also have, if I pay a tuition for my kids to go to a private school in any state, I have a say as the person that writes that check. You have an administration that has a say as to who speakers,
alumni associations who will hopefully withhold their donations. I'm so sorry, we have to go quickly. 5 seconds.
5 seconds. That was a partisan speech. It had nothing to do with free speech.
Okay, very good. Glenn Hall and Leslie Marshall and Lawrence Jones, thank you all so much.